You know, it was almost 5 years ago to the day that I stood right here on this very spot in front of this very motorcycle and talked about the 10 things that I thought Honda needed to fix on the 2018 Honda Goldwing. Well, some time has gone by and some things got fixed, but not many. And I found a few more things that Honda needs to fix.
This video is sponsored by Cruiseman's Garage Honda Goldwing Maintenance Video Series.
So now's probably a good time for me to let you know that I still consider this to be the best motorcycle I've ever owned. I think it is an amazing feat of engineering. I think it's a beautiful motorcycle. I still think it's very stylish. It's super smooth, super reliable. It has all those things you love about owning a Honda, but it could be better. And now the industry is kind of moving forward over the last 5 or 6 years, and we're seeing a lot of the things that were maybe innovative on this motorcycle back then, not so much innovative anymore. That doesn't mean it's not a great bike. It's still a wonderful motorcycle. I still think it's actually a pretty good value too when you compare it to other motorcycles in this class. Again, it's probably the best bike I've ever owned, but I know Honda could do better and make this a motorcycle that's so far ahead of anything else that's out there. You shouldn't even have to think about it. You should be able to look at the Honda Goldwing and say, that's the bike for me. So that's what I'm hoping Honda can do with these 13 things that I'm recommending. I'm sure there's others out there. If you've got some ideas of things that you'd like on the next Goldwing or you'd like Honda to address, please put them in the comments down below, because I read every comment, and who knows, maybe somebody at Honda will actually see this video. You know, to Honda's credit, they did address something on the 2021 and later models that I didn't even mention in my original video, and that is the trunk being so small you couldn't even put 2 helmets in it, or I couldn't in mine. And in 2021 and later models, they do have this larger trunk. Now, I did install the larger trunk kit, the upgrade, onto this 2018 Goldwing, and I love it. I also put on the new 2021 seat, which was changed. And one of the things I did mention 5 years ago that I thought Honda needed to fix were the passenger grab rails, and they did. And I purchased a set of the newer style for this bike. So good on Honda for addressing those issues. Another issue I raised in 2018 was the fit and finish on the trunk. And this 2021 and later trunk appears to have resolved that issue. I had a pretty big gap or distance between this center panel and the side panels, and it now fits absolutely perfectly. So Honda did deal with the fit and finish. One of my biggest gripes with the 2018 Goldwing was with the built-in navigation GPS system. And at the time, I said it just really wasn't up to the standard of a touring bike and what people that do long distance touring, maybe over several days, it just doesn't really do what they need it to do. And I haven't changed my mind on that. Now, Honda has made a few minor updates. I think they've increased the number of routes you can have in the system, maybe even the number of waypoints, but it's still woefully inadequate compared to my Garmin XT or XT2. It just is not a motorcycle touring GPS. It really isn't that much better than Apple CarPlay with Apple Maps or Google Maps. You could pretty much accomplish anything with those that you can do with the Apple GPS. You know, that video was done 5 years ago, and a lot's changed in 5 years. There are a lot of new models out from other manufacturers, other brands. And for example, the Indian Pursuit and Indian models have a very, very robust GPS navigation system. They also have a very nice website where you can plan your routes and download them to the motorcycle. So Honda, I think, has kind of gotten left behind in that situation. And I think it's more than time for Honda to address these issues. And, you know, maybe next year being the anniversary year of the Goldwing, maybe they will. But it just doesn't seem to be an area that Honda has shown a lot of interest in keeping updated. Also, something that should be part of this navigation system, in my opinion, is it should have voice commands where you could perhaps say, hey, Goldwing, show me to the nearest gas station or something like that. You should be able to drive the system with voice commands rather than having to use this little panel on the hand controls and take your eyes off the road and look at the screen to do things. The more you could do verbally through your headset, the better, in my opinion. In my original video, I talked about this center pocket door, and the issues still remain. It's still too hard to open. They really didn't update that. They say they did, but I can't tell that much difference. You still have to press on the right-hand side of the button. It just does not feel like it is quality workmanship that the rest of the motorcycle is. And it should have a lock, even if it's a dumb lock. It doesn't have to necessarily be tied into the electronics of the motorcycle like the side pocket is. Just any kind of a lock would be preferable to what we have right now, but it needs to be something that's good quality. So center pocket still needs a lock and needs a better button mechanism. The only remaining place I can think of that really where fit and finish is a negative issue is on this side pocket door. Mine still has this lip that sticks up probably about 1/8 to a little more than 1/8 of an inch. It just does not fit flush. It just does not look like very good quality. That would, I would think, be a pretty easy fix for Honda when they come out with a newer model. Just the fit and finish of this side pocket door leaves a little to be desired. And unfortunately, Honda has done nothing to address the horn button. The horn button, I still find it very hard to find with my thumb. To me, it's not really in the correct location. I continue when I need to hit the horn for an emergency. I still end up hitting the Siri talk switch up here, or sometimes the turn signal switch. That seems to fall more in line with where my thumb falls. If they just did something to make this button more prominent, maybe make it stick out 1/2 inch further so that you could feel it even with your gloves on, it would be a little bit more like the size of the button for the downshift, upshift paddles. Something like that up here on the horn, I think, would make a big difference. They wouldn't even have to relocate it, just make it easier to find. Another item I mentioned 5 years ago that I felt like Honda should address is there should be some sort of notification when the trunk and the saddlebags lock after you've walked away from the bike. So, you know, like if I park my bike at a restaurant or at a friend's house or wherever, and I walk away from the bike, at some point the proximity gets to the point where those saddlebags and that trunk lid are going to lock automatically. And of course the ignition becomes disabled. The problem is I don't have any way of knowing that. The key fob doesn't beep, there's no light. There should be a little beep on the bike or something to audibly let me know that everything is now locked up. The other thing that occurs is when I approach the motorcycle, the ability for the motorcycle to recognize the key fob is within proximity, which then should turn on the puddle lamps, and it turns on the trunk interior light. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of inconsistent. So Honda should address this ability for the bike to recognize you when you walk up and have those puddle lamps come on every time. Now, to their credit, I've never had a situation where I couldn't get into the saddlebags or the trunk as long as the key fob has a good battery and it's working. And I've never had it where I couldn't start the bike, but I have had situations in the morning I'll come out, I'll approach the motorcycle, and those puddle lamps don't come on. The next thing I think Honda needs to address, and this is a problem that's plagued everybody that owns a 2018 or later Honda Goldwing, and that is that parking brake. Now this is only applicable to those of you that have a DCT model, but the parking brake, while it's a great feature, it allows you to ride the bike off, put it in gear and ride it off without releasing the parking brake. And what ends up happening after 2 or 3 times, you've kind of burned up your parking brake pad and you have to replace it, or you have to adjust the parking brake cable, and there's really not that much play or flexibility in that adjustment. So pretty soon you stretch that cable out to the point that it can't be adjusted anymore. Honda, if you're listening, you've already got a switch on the kickstand. You can also add a separate micro switch to that parking brake handle so that if that parking brake is engaged, it won't allow the bike to go into gear. It could be the exact same circuit that you're using for the kickstand switch. Now, I do know that the aftermarket has addressed this. There is a product that addresses this parking brake issue. It's still something that you shouldn't have to go to the aftermarket. Hopefully, Honda will address this in a future Honda Goldwing. When Honda introduced the new larger trunk in 2021, they also introduced a brand new seat design with a different type of vinyl for the seat cover and some really cool looking gray accents. Now this backrest is one from Showchrome. It's their platinum backrest that matches this new 2021 design. In fact, if you're interested in this, I'll put links in the description down below. Honda had an opportunity in 2021, since they're putting on a new seat anyway, is to make it more comfortable, and they did nothing to change the comfort. The padding, everything is virtually identical. There's a little bit of difference in the passenger backrest, but the rider seat and the bottom portion of the pillion is basically the same as it was before. It just has a different cover with different light gray accents. And it's still pretty darn uncomfortable. But what's even worse, and even though I love the feel of this new vinyl that Honda has put on this seat, it is terrible when it comes to scuffing and scarring. I even have a couple of marks. If you barely drag your boot or your shoe across this, it will leave a permanent mark on this vinyl, and you can't get it out. There's no way to repair it. My friend Robert, I think he's 5'9", I'm 6'2". I can get my leg over the seat pretty easily. Sometimes I have to lift the bottom of my pant leg to do it, but poor Robert, he has just scarred up his seat, and there's just no excuse on a motorcycle this expensive to have a flaw like that. They need to be able to source some kind of a vinyl that won't mar so easily when you get on and off the bike. So just about every other item that I've got on my list has to do with this part of the motorcycle. First of all, the AM/FM reception is terrible. It's terrible. And I know I'm not alone. Everybody I've talked to that uses AM/FM has mentioned it. The Sirius XM radio seems to work pretty good. I don't have a big problem with that. But I can drive 45 or 50 miles outside of Dallas-Fort Worth, and I can no longer get my favorite AM station, which is a big AM station here. That's unacceptable. I was test riding a BMW K1600 GTL last year, and I did not have that problem on the BMW. I certainly don't have it on my car, on my Lexus. And so I don't know if it's an antenna issue. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but Honda needs to address the AM/FM reception. It's also way too difficult to program preset AM/FM stations on this. I always have to go back and get the user manual to figure out how to do it, because I always forget. Too many steps, it's too complicated. The other thing that happens is whenever you use Apple CarPlay and you go away from Apple CarPlay, it always jumps back to FM. So even if I was listening to AM radio while using Apple CarPlay, as soon as our Apple CarPlay disconnects, it automatically jumps back to FM for some reason. Not sure. That seems like it would be a very simple software fix to address that. So let's talk a little bit about the settings menu. This seems a little underutilized to me. It seems like we should have things in the settings menu that we don't have. For example, anybody with a DCT Goldwing pretty routinely has to reinitialize the DCT transmission. And to me, that should be a menu option. You shouldn't have to remember DD, NDN, and how to use this panel, and you have to turn it on and wait for the middle lamp and all that. Why not just go to one of the items in the settings menu and tell it to reset the DCT transmission? It also seems like there's a better way to do the emergency start procedure, and I'm not sure if that involves the settings menu, or we've already got a emergency key to unlock the left saddlebag, and then you pull a cable to unlock the right saddlebag, and then you pull another cable to unlock the trunk. I mean, it's very complicated. All these steps you have to go through, and nobody's going to remember that. You're going to have to carry something with you to remind you how to do it. You've already got a key. Why not just have a way to start the bike with that little key? You know, I know it's not sophisticated, it's not sexy, but it's so much easier than having to worry about all this other stuff. The next thing is just this TFT Dash in general. It's starting to look dated and boring. We should be able to adjust the colors, maybe even have a wallpaper where we can have a graphic or an image as a wallpaper. If you look at the radio audio source, it's just this blue background, which is very pretty. You've got a full color TFT screen here. Why can't we at least change the colors? Why can't we add widgets to the screen? You can on the Indian Pursuit. You can basically customize the screen to have all different kinds of information visible to the rider. And that's why I say this is something new I didn't think about 5 years ago, because I hadn't ridden other brands of bikes to see what these other brands are doing. And they're doing some pretty incredible things with their screens. Honda's got the screen, they just don't have the technology that's keeping up with the rest of the industry. And it's a shame, because they're 90% of the way there. Just hire a good programmer with a good graphic user interface and give us some more features on this screen. I know a lot of guys want a touch screen. I really don't care about a touch screen. That's not that big a deal. You'd have to really redesign the bike to do that, because it's too far to reach up here to touch that screen anyway. That would be a major redo. But just reprogramming what they already have doesn't seem like it'd be that big of a deal. I mean, why can't we have a digital speedometer on that screen? And why can't the screen show us the current speed limit? You have the navigation system already in place. It's already got a link to the satellite, I assume. So it knows the speed limit because it displays the speed limit. But why do you have to be in the navigation screen to see the speed limit? Why can't you just see that on the regular TFT Dash screen? Apple CarPlay is one of the coolest features of the Honda Goldwing. And when it came out in 2018, it was kind of revolutionary. I think Honda might have been one of the first motorcycles, well, the Goldwing might have been one of the first ones to have Apple CarPlay integration. And 5 years ago, I said it should also have Android Auto, and Apple responded, and they did add Android Auto as an option for the Honda Goldwing. The problem is it's a clunky interface. You have to start things up in a certain order. You have to have your headset connected to the bike. In most cases, these headset connections don't work reliably because maybe it's because Honda's using such an old version of Bluetooth. And apparently when you update your navigation system from Honda, it does not have the ability to install a new version of Bluetooth. Maybe that's something that's hardware related, I'm not sure. They need to update the Bluetooth to the latest version of Bluetooth. So my 13th item that I think Honda should address on the Honda Goldwing is they need to add adaptive cruise control. Ducati has it on the Multistrada, BMW has it on the R1200 RT, and there's no excuse for Honda's flagship motorcycle to not have adaptive cruise control. So there you have it. Those are the 13 things that I think Honda needs to address on this 6th generation Goldwing, which is perhaps the best motorcycle they've ever built. It is an incredible platform, but it can be better, and Honda has the ability to make it better. Now it's just a question of whether or not they're going to do it. Anyway, thanks for joining me today on Cruiseman's Garage. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really does help with our YouTube rankings. And until I see you next time, remember to ride often, but ride safe.